Welcome to the best works of emerging explicit romance authors.
Our curators select a wide variety of tales about the lifelong human quest
for satisfying, lasting, and meaningful expressions of sexual health. Steamy Stories daily podcast focuses primarily on short stories.
Explicit Novels Daily Podcast presents longer format novels over a span of episodes.
Subscribe to both Steamy Stories and Explicit Novels in your favorite podcasting app.
And now, today's story.
Redwood Girls Academy, Part 1. Alan is the only guy in an all-girls school. By Cheat 105. Listen to the podcast at Explicit Novels. Hello, my name is Alan, and through some strange twist of fate at age 18 I ended up the only boy in an all-girls school for my senior year. Now I understand, to most guys the idea of being surrounded by hot girls every day sounds like a dream come true, but being a teenage boy I was basically a walking hard-on, which was like torture. How did I end up in this place? Well, long story short, I got into some trouble and was kicked out of my old school, and my mother, who was the headmistress at Redwood Academy for girls, pulled some strings and exceptions were made, so I got transferred here. It's a little hard to explain and I don't know all the details myself. The school didn't want to lose their headmistress, so a probationary enrollment was authorized by the regents. Now, growing up in a family with only my mother, my sister, my aunt, and my two female cousins, I was used to being around women. My father had split when I was young and my aunt's husband had split too, which I'm quite sure left them feeling a bit jaded towards men. But despite their feelings toward men, they always treated me very well, so I never felt unloved or anything. Well, that was until I became a teenager and started getting into trouble. Then I suppose the recent trouble with my school was the last straw, and despite my mother going out on a limb to get me transferred to Redwood, she seemed to act rather cold towards me, and I got a similar treatment from the rest of the family. On my first day in the new school, I was introduced by the teachers in all my classes, and let's just say the reception was a little less than warm. Some girls looked at me curiously, clearly fascinated by the situation. But most of the girls met me with cold stares, quite obviously not happy about me, a guy being allowed in their school. And honestly, who could blame them? I didn't even try to make an effort to fit in. Hell, I didn't even wear the school uniform, right? The uniform, which consisted of a gray blazer with school seals sewn onto the breast, a navy blue knit vest sweater, a white button-down formal shirt, a tie, a pleated wool skirt or navy slacks, and brown leather dress shoes. The proper way to wear the uniform was the blazer closed with the 3 buttons going down the bottom half, white dress shirt tucked in and buttoned all the way up, and the tie done in your typical Windsor knot. Being a male, the tie part only applied to me. The females had ties too, but not the same as a men's tie. And I was forbidden to wear a skirt. Anyways, having always hated dressing up, I walked into that school with the blazer unbuttoned and open, the white shirt only halfway tucked in with the top few buttons undone, and the tie was half-assed at best. Not to mention my unkempt medium-length brown hair and the unshaven stubble on my face. From the second I stepped foot on that campus, most everyone looked at me like some kind of delinquent. And by the time I was being introduced in my classes, word had already gotten around that the new male student was a delinquent, and somehow they even got the idea that I'm some kind of pervert. I'll concede the delinquent part, but a pervert? That frustrated me. There are probably some well-adjusted girls in this academy, but a bunch of the chicks are either man-haters, lesbians, phobic of all things male, or just generally snobs. Testosterone is regarded as a toxic and harmful scourge on half of the world's population, and responsible for the bulk of crime, violence, war, and the suppression of the enlightened feminine half of the world. The sociology department faculty advances these beliefs and even advocates such bigoted attitudes in their lectures. If a girl wasn't already a sexist bigot when she got there, she likely graduated as a fully converted bitch. When the first day of classes ended, I walked alone to the student dorms. I was supposed to be meeting with the RA concerning my living situation on campus. The campus was huge, countless classrooms and other facilities, 3 separate dorms each with their own cafeterias and rec rooms. It's really a miracle I didn't get lost. I got to the dorms and found the RA in her office. I noticed immediately that she was an attractive woman. She looked to be maybe in her late 20s to early 30s. Alan Reynolds, she asked. Yeah, I said. Right. Well, hello, I'm Danielle. I'm the resident assistant of these dorms. Go ahead and take a seat, she said, gesturing to a chair sitting in front of her desk. I took a seat while she turned her attention back to the computer sitting on her desk. I'll assign you a room here in a bit, but first I need to go over the rules with you. As you can imagine, the situation is a bit unprecedented, she said, turning her attention to me. I just nodded my head. First off, we don't have any designated men's facilities in the dorms. So we've had to make some new rules for the bathrooms and showers. I've made up a schedule for when you can use the showers, when nobody else is using them. As for the restrooms, since that obviously can't be scheduled, you'll have to use one of the guest restrooms on the main campus, she said, handing me a piece of paper with a list of times that I can use the showers. That's fine, I said, but thinking differently. Wonderful, I thought, this is basically like a fucking prison, scheduled showers? Fuck. I mean, I understood the reasoning, but it still bothered me nonetheless. Good, she said, with a smile. If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your room, she added while standing up from her desk. I followed her out of her office and walked with her as she continued telling me about the dorm, the cafeteria, rec room, etc. She showed me to my room at the near end of the hall. For obvious reasons, you'll be given your own room. All students are expected to be in their rooms with lights out at 10 p.m. If you need anything, just ask, you know where my office is. Since your assigned room is near the stairs and shower room, you'll have to answer for any time you're seen further down the hall or on any other residential floor. Several parents are not happy that a guy is in their daughter's school, so we've made a strong commitment to them that we would step up the monitoring of your presence, she said, handing me the room key before walking away. I entered my room and took a look around. There were 2 beds, 2 dressers, 2 desks, and a pretty sizable closet that was clearly built for 2. Looking around at all the extra furnishings really hammered home how lonely my life would be at this school. Then again, I suppose having my own room was better than having to share like all the other students. I set my book bag down next to the desk and took a seat on the bed. Luckily, the bed was at least plenty comfortable, but I would need to get sheets, pillows, and blankets. However, all of my stuff was out in Mom's car, so I would have to go see her before the day was over. I got up and left my room, shutting the door and locking it behind me. I walked through the hall of the dorm, ignoring the stares from the girls. I made my way out of the dorm and onto the main campus. I was headed to the headmistress's office, my mom's office. When I got to the building where her office was located, I walked in and found Mom's office. The door was open, so I didn't bother knocking or talking to her secretary. Mom, I said, to get her attention as she was busy working at her desk. I have a secretary for a reason, you know, she said, not even looking up from her work. She's been rather cold and distant like this ever since the trouble with my old school, so this was no surprise. I hardly think I need to ask a secretary to speak to my mother. I countered. Very well, what do you need? I'm busy, she responded. I need to get my stuff out of your car, I said. Mom then reached down to her purse on the floor beside her and grabbed her keys from one of the pockets. And she finally looked up from her work at me when she handed me the keys. Fix your uniform, Alan. And please get a haircut and shave. Try to make yourself presentable, she said before turning her attention back to her work. I didn't say anything more. I just stuffed the keys in my pocket and walked out of her office. Strangely enough, it felt good that she acknowledged my improper wear of the uniform. It seems to have been the most attention she's paid to me in a long while. I walked out to the parking lot where Mom's car was parked. I had a couple of boxes and bags, too much to carry all the way to the dorms, so I just drove the car over to the dorms and parked outside. I then got out and grabbed my 2 large duffel bags from the back seat and began carrying them to my room. I made note of the audience of girls watching me as I carried my bags. I dropped my bags off in my room, then made my way back out to the car. I popped the trunk, and as I looked in the trunk to get my remaining boxes, I heard a female voice from behind me. Hey, you're the new male student, right? Alan's your name, the female voice asked. Huh? Oh yeah, I said, turning around slightly startled. The voice had come from a pretty attractive brunette with green eyes. I couldn't tell much else about her due to the restrictive school uniform, but she had a light tan and stood about 5'6". I remembered her from one of my morning classes. She's one of the few girls who didn't look at me with disgust. I also quickly noticed the number of girls outside the dorm who were giving me the stink eye as this girl spoke to me. And she must have noticed too. Oh, don't worry about any of them. Most of them are just uppity bitches who are just jealous that their boyfriends aren't allowed on campus and you work, she said, looking around at the other girls. Wow, I thought, this girl just calls it how she sees it. It was a breath of fresh air, to be sure. Anyways, you need some help carrying those boxes? Oh, I'm Molly, by the way. Nice to meet you, she said with a smile and a cute giggle, reaching out her hand for a handshake. Yeah, nice to meet you, I'm Alan. I said, taking her petite hand in mine and shaking it. Yeah, I know. Everyone knows your name, she said with another cute giggle. Oh, right. I said, with a nervous smile as I scratched the back of my head. You want some help? I can carry one of those for you, she said, easing the nervous tension with a smile. Oh, yeah. Thanks. I said, handing her the lighter of the two boxes. No problem, she said, as we began walking with the boxes to my room. Once we got to my room with the boxes, I set them on the floor in my room, while Molly waited in the hall. Thanks for the help, I said, meeting her back out in the hall. It was no problem. And it was nice meeting you. Come talk to me sometime. I'll be eating dinner in the cafeteria around 6 if you wanted to come sit with me, she said with that same cute smile from before. Yeah, I may do that, I said. With that, she walked away. Meanwhile, I headed back out to Mom's car so I could return it to her parking space. I drove the car back across campus as I thought about the girl. She was nice and quite pretty. I would for sure take her up on her offer to eat with her. After all, I was getting pretty hungry. I parked Mom's car back in her spot and then brought her keys back to her. I didn't bother to say anything to her, nor her to me. I just dropped the keys off and continued on my way to the dorms. Back in my room, I checked the time. It was only about 5. That Molly girl had said she would be getting dinner around 6, so I had an hour to kill. I decided to go ahead and unpack my things. My casual clothes I put in the dresser, and I had a few spare uniforms that I hung in the closet. I unpacked my computer from one of the boxes and set it up on the desk. In the other box was some sheets, a blanket, and a couple of pillows. I made up my bed, and by the time I'd finished unpacking, it was nearly 6. I left my room and headed to the cafeteria. I grabbed a plate of food and looked for a place to sit. I quickly noticed Molly. She was sitting by herself. So I walked over and sat across from her. Hey, I was wondering if you were coming, she said, greeting me. Yeah, I got hungry, I said, as I began to eat. Did you get everything unpacked okay? She asked, looking up from her own food. Yeah, I said. We continued our small talk like that for a little while. She asked how I ended up in this school. I didn't tell her the whole truth, only that I had gotten in trouble at my last school and they gave me the boot. I could tell she was still curious and wanted the whole story, but she didn't press, thankfully. As we continued talking, 3 girls walked up to the table. I prepared myself to be insulted by them, but no insults came. Hey Molly, the 3 girls said in unison. Hey guys, have a seat, Molly replied. I deduced that they were friends of Molly. So who's the guy? One girl asked Molly. This is the new student, Alan, Molly replied. Oh, so this is the male student I've been hearing about all day. Well, I'm Katie, the same girl responded. And I'm Amanda, one of the others chimed in. I'm Aaron, the last one added. They all had friendly smiles as they introduced themselves. "Oh. Well, as Molly said, I'm Alan. It's nice to meet all of you," I said, returning their friendly smiles. "We're all on the volleyball team together," Molly said. "Oh cool, I didn't even know this place has a volleyball team," I said. "Well, you probably don't know much about this place, do ya?" Katie said, with a giggle. "I know, look at the way he wears the uniform." Amanda chimed in with a laugh, pointing at my disheveled appearance. The other girls let out a laugh as well. "Oh well, just thought I'd make a fashion statement," I said, try my hand at some humor, and all 5 of us began laughing. We all sat there talking and laughing for a few minutes when I decided to check the time. It was nearly 8:30, which was one of my scheduled shower times. "Well ladies, I do hate to cut this short, but I gotta get going. I'll talk to y'all some other time," I said, before getting up. The girls all said goodbye, then I left. I quickly went back to my room, grabbed a towel, a change of clothes, along with a toothbrush and toothpaste, shampoo, and body wash, then went to the showers. The showers were empty as expected. Danielle, the RA, had already gone over this schedule with all the girls living in the dorm. I set my towel and clothes on the counter and put my shampoo, body wash, etc. in one of the shower stalls. I then quickly removed my clothing and got in the shower. It felt good standing under the relaxing cascade of hot water after such a long and stressful day. But as I had only been allotted 15 minutes in the shower, I couldn't relax too much. So I brushed my teeth quickly, then washed my hair and body afterward. I then got out of the shower and began drying off. I put on a clean pair of boxers and athletic shorts I'd brought with me. I didn't think to grab a shirt to take to the bathroom, besides the shower was just down the hall from me, so being shirtless for a few seconds wouldn't hurt. I grabbed my dirty clothes, towel, and hygiene products and left the showers. As I walked out into the hall, I noticed almost immediately that there were several girls out in the hall and they were staring at me, while my shirtless torso, to be more precise. Now look, I'm not a muscle-bound meathead by any means, but I did have some decent muscles and noticeable abs from working out and stood at about 6 feet 0 inches. Plus, coming from a family of naturally attractive people, I was at least reasonably handsome myself, or so I'd been told. I was just glad the girls weren't staring at me in disgust for once, so I didn't mind the attention as I walked back to my room. Back in my room, I put my dirty clothes in my laundry bag, then sat at my desk and turned on my computer. Luckily, the dorms all had Wi-Fi, so I was able to connect to the internet. I decided to check my Facebook to see what my old friends were up to. I saw that I had received friend requests from Molly, Katie, Amanda, and Aaron. I accepted the friend requests, then signed out of Facebook. I then turned on some music and went over to my bed to lie down. I laid in bed listening to music and I thought about the day's events. At first I dreaded having to go this school, but the first day wasn't actually so bad. I did at least manage to meet a few intriguing girls. What an attractive group of girls, I thought. They were all seniors, like me, except they were actually supposed to be in this school, unlike me. Katie had dirty blonde hair that stopped just below her jawline and hazel eyes. She was certainly shorter and more petite than the other girls, standing about 5 foot 0, but had the more outgoing personality. Amanda had shoulder-length flaxen blonde hair and light blue eyes. She had without a doubt the more curvy body type. Her ample bust was noticeable even under that restrictive school uniform, and she's about 5 foot 5. Erin had long dark almost black hair and brown eyes. I'd say she was the most average of the group. She stood about 5 foot 3, and while the other girls all had light tans of varying tones, Erin's skin was a bit paler, not ghost white or anything, but not tan either. Don't get me wrong, Erin was plenty attractive too, she just didn't stick out like the other girls did. Plus, she seemed to have a more reserved personality. Being a teenage boy with raging hormones, I immediately began to think about whether I had a shot with any of these girls. But then I remembered how I ended up in this school and realized I should just suppress my own urges and forget about it, lest I get kicked out of this school as well. You see, that trouble I got into at my old school, it was those very same hormones. Those damned accursed hormones that led me astray. Long story short, I got caught having sex with a female student in the girls' bathroom. Then, as if that alone wasn't bad enough, the girl's parents tried to say I forced her to have sex with me and threatened to get the law involved. In the end, they got a restraining order against me. I was banned from ever setting foot on the school's property, and I was forced to leave the county completely. No one believed for a second that I was innocent, and the girl's parents had pressured her to keep quiet. All of my friends stopped talking to me, and even my own family began ignoring me. The whole matter got swept under the rug, but the damage was done. My mother, left with no options, pulled some strings to get me into Redwood Academy for girls, and trust me, I see the irony in that, considering my supposed crime. I just want to set the record straight. I have never, nor would I ever, pressure a girl into sex. Needless to say, the whole incident had a lasting effect on me. I couldn't so much as look at a girl without getting nervous now. I guess subconsciously the only thing I could think about was what all could go wrong, that history would repeat itself and I would end up in the exact same kind of situation that got me here in the first place. So I resolved to keep my hormone in check. I should just focus on my education, I told myself, and getting my family to forgive me. The latter would be much easier said than done. I still remember what my mother said to me after the incident. She looked at me with cold eyes and said, "I guess you're no different than any other man. I'm so disappointed in you." Her words cut me like a knife, and after a while I stopped trying to plead my innocence to her. I was depressed most of the time, constantly questioning why the girl wouldn't just come clean, wondering why her parents had such an axe to grind. After all, it was just a couple of horny teenagers doing what horny teenagers do. But most of all, what bothered me was that my own family had never even stopped to hear my side of the story. Anyways, back to the story. I was laying in my bed listening to music, thinking about the past. I was feeling pretty shitty when suddenly I got a notification on my phone. The short ringing sound drew me out my own head and I checked my smartphone to see what it was. It was a notification of a Facebook message from Molly. It read, "Hey, I see you accepted my friend request. Here's my cell number, text me sometime." I immediately forgot about my sorrows as I read her message. I know I had resolved to keep my hormones in check, but what harm could come from just talking to a girl? So I saved the attached number to my phone, then proceeded to send a text. Me, "Hey, it's Alan. I just got your message." Molly, "Great. And now I've got your number. I hope you don't mind if I give it to Katie, Amanda, and Aaron." Me, "No, that's fine." Molly, "Awesome. So what ya up to?" Me, "Just lying in bed listening to music till I get tired. Probably go to sleep here in a few minutes." Molly, "Yeah, same here. Hey, text me tomorrow and we'll meet up for breakfast. Good night." Me, "Will do. Good night." With that, I turned off my phone and plugged it into the charger, then went over to my computer and shut it down. I lay back down in my bed and closed my eyes to go to sleep. My first date was finally over, and all in all it hadn't been so bad. I met several girls who were nice and fun to be around. Maybe this school wouldn't be so bad after all, I thought as I fell asleep. Over the next few weeks, I talked to Molly and the other 3 girls quite a bit, and we all were getting along pretty well. I was beginning to enjoy this new school I had been dreading at first. I was actually having fun. Sure, there were still plenty of other girls around school that would shoot me the stink eye anytime they saw me, and they would even direct their looks towards Molly, Katie, Amanda, and Aaron when we were spending time together. Anytime we had free time, the 5 of us would hang out. Sometimes we would even leave the school campus to go into the city and catch a movie, visit shops, or grab a bite to eat when we got tired of eating at school. Molly and I had especially gotten closer. We would talk with and or text each other most every day. We'd gotten to where we talked about most everything with each other, no matter how personal. We trusted each other implicitly. But the one thing I could never bring myself to tell her was about the trouble at my old school. I wanted to avoid reliving those sour memories at all costs. I would take them to my grave if possible. Also, I just didn't want her to think less of me. Even though I was sure she may be the only person who would believe my side of the story, I still couldn't bring myself to talk about it. And even though I was certain I was beginning to fall this girl, I could never make a move. My past still haunted me and prevented me from doing so. Anyways, volleyball season was just about to start, so that meant the girls wouldn't have as much free time anymore because they would be busy practicing. Luckily, Molly and the girls invited me to come watch their practices anytime I wanted. So when I got done with classes for the day, I would go sit in the gym bleachers and do my homework as I watched them practice, which served as good entertainment, but also good eye candy, as oftentimes the girls would practice in just their sports bras and short tight athletic shorts. It was almost as if they forgot there was a hormonal teenage guy sitting in the bleachers watching them, or they just didn't care. Either way, it provided me the opportunity to get a better look at their bodies. But anytime I found myself staring for too long, I would have to reprimand myself. After all, I had promised myself I wouldn't get into the same situation that landed me in so much trouble at my old school. I told myself it was okay to look, but I mustn't try to take it any further than that. No matter how beautiful these girls were, I had to fight my urges. I could not afford to screw this up. Little did I know, on one particular day I would soon find myself embroiled in a similar set of circumstances, but with a very different outcome. Said day was a Wednesday. Practice had been cut short because Molly had rolled her ankle trying to go for a save. It wasn't severe or anything, and wouldn't inhibit her from playing in the upcoming first match, but the coach had told her to stay off it for a few days. After the practice was cut short that evening, Amanda and I helped Molly walk by letting her brace herself on our shoulders. We first went to the cafeteria for a quick meal, then we helped her to her dorm room. That's where we parted ways, and I went to my room, where I relaxed on my bed with some music playing on my computer. It was just past curfew when I heard a knock at my door. I got up, walked over to the door, wondering who could be visiting so late. I opened the door, and to my surprise it was Molly, still in her practice clothes. "Molly, what the hell? I thought you were supposed to stay off that ankle?" I said in shock. "Not only that, do you know how late it is?" I continued. "I know. Look, can I come in and sit for a bit?" she said with pain in her face and voice. Okay, sure," I nervously said. I couldn't in good conscience just make her limp all the way back to her room. "Don't worry, my roomie is sleeping and everyone else in their rooms, so no one saw me," she said, as I helped her over to the chair at my desk, shutting the door behind her and making one last check that nobody saw. "Okay, but what about Danielle? What happens when she does her nightly room checks?" I said, worried that the RA could pop in at any second and get the wrong idea about why Molly was in my room. "Oh, she's out with her boyfriend tonight. She won't be back till late. But that's a secret, so shush, don't tell nobody," she replied with a giggle. "Seriously, don't tell anyone, she could lose her job." Molly stopped laughing. "Okay. So what's up?" I asked, still confused as to why Molly was in my room. "Well, I tried to sleep, but this damn ankle hurts so bad. After a while I got bored and wanted someone to talk to. Seeing as my roomie is sleeping and I knew you would still be up, I just decided to come see you." Molly replied, flashing that same cute smile that I had become entranced by on many occasions. "Damn, I had no idea it hurt that bad. Tough break, I'm sorry. Let me know if there's anything I can do," I said, showing real concern. After a pause, as though she were mulling it over, she finally spoke. "Actually, there is something I could use your help with," she said, looking at the ground as she spoke. It was obvious that she was nervous. What could she possibly want help with, I wondered. "Well, you see, since my ankle was hurting so bad I couldn't take a shower earlier, and I feel so nasty from sweating during practice, and I'm not supposed to put any weight on it. So, could you maybe help me get to the shower and make sure I don't fall," she said, looking as innocent as possible. I could hardly believe what I just heard. I wanted to refuse, because I knew where this could potentially lead, and I did not want to go through that kind of trouble again. But then again, maybe I was jumping to conclusions. Maybe she really did need help. After all, she had just hurt her ankle. "I don't know, Molly. Don't you think there's someone better you could ask, like another girl?" I said. "I would, but everyone else is asleep. You're the only person I know that stays up this late, and it's not like anyone will see us. Everyone is sleeping after all, and Danielle doesn't get back until much later when she goes out with her boyfriend. It'll be fine, plus I trust you not to peek, so what's the problem? Molly replied. After thinking about it for a second, I realized that I was probably just reading too much into the whole thing. Besides, Molly most likely wasn't interested in me in that way. I was, as you might say, in the friend zone. Okay, you make a valid point, I said. Great. Now if you would please help me back to my room so I can grab a towel and a change of clothes, she responded. Yeah, no problem, I said, letting her brace herself on my shoulder as I quietly helped her down the hall to her room. Once we got to her room, I waited by the door as she quietly grabbed a towel and clothes from her dresser. When she finished, I let her brace herself once more on my shoulder and helped her limp back down the hall to the showers. Thanks for doing this, Alan, she said as we reached the bathroom. You're welcome, I replied. I stood with my back turned to her so I couldn't see as she braced herself on my shoulder to get undressed. And I assure you, the idea of an extremely attractive girl getting undressed right behind was certainly enough to get the blood flowing. I waited outside the stall while she showered, as she had requested, so I could help in case she fell. As thoughts of this hot naked girl showering right there near me flooded into my brain, I began to feel a slight stirring in my loins. I would have to be careful to avoid her noticing. Although, as more thoughts flooded in, the ever-increasing bulge in my pants was becoming much harder to conceal. Finally, after about 15 minutes or so of waiting, I heard the water turn off. Molly reached her arm out from behind the curtain, so I handed her the towel she'd brought. Like before, I kept my back turned so I wouldn't see her when she came out of the stall. Then, I guess she underestimated how wet the floor was, and only being on one foot had made it even more hazardous, because as she exited the stall she slipped and began to fall. Having good reflexes, I instinctively turned around to grab her and prevent her from falling. But due to the awkward way in which she was falling, I slipped on the wet floor as well as I caught her. With the thought, I had fallen onto my back and Molly had fallen on top of me. It took me all of a few seconds to realize that the towel she had wrapped around herself had come undone in the commotion, and she was now lying on top of me with her wet, modest B-cup breasts pressed against my chest. The only thing between us was my thin t-shirt, which was now wet from her body. Oh shit, are you okay, Alan? She asked. Yeah, are you okay? I asked in return. I'm good, because you caught me. Thanks for that, by the way, she replied, giving me a quick peck on the cheek, seeing as our faces were just inches apart anyways. I had no time to think about the kiss on the cheek, however small it was, because that's about the time I realized that her thigh was pressed right up against my crotch. She without a doubt could feel the rock-hard bulge against her thigh. I was terrified. I then felt her nipples begin to harden against my chest as we just stared each other in the eye in complete silence. Then without warning, Molly leaned her face down and kissed me on the lips. In that instant, every bit of resolve I had to not make those same old mistakes had crumbled. Without even thinking about it, I began to kiss her soft, supple lips back. We kissed there on the floor for almost a minute before Molly broke our kiss. I've waited so long to do that, Molly said, staring me in the eyes once more. Wow, I thought she was waiting to kiss me? I could see immediately that Molly had a fire in her eyes, and judging by the rigidity of nipples and her slight breathlessness, I could tell she was just as turned on as I was. To be continued. By Cheat 105 for Literotica.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode.
We hope you found pleasure and inspiration.
Come back tomorrow as we continue to bring you more explicit romance tales, and subscribe to our podcast feeds in your mobile devices
To access our entire library
of hundreds of daily episodes.
Happy dreams.